Let's take a quick look at how you can use MicroStrategy's agile analytic capabilities to access and visually analyze data from Hadoop using Cloudera Impala. Since Hadoop is usually associated with unstructured or semi-structured data, I'm going to query and analyze a web log that I pulled from a public website. Traditionally, this might be done by a data scientist or an architect with very specific skill sets and knowledge, but with MicroStrategy we can simplify the process to make this type of analysis accessible to more users. I'm going to build a dashboard, and since I'm not connected to Hadoop yet, I'll start by importing new data. More advanced users have the option of writing their own queries, but in MicroStrategy we have a graphical interface that can be used to construct queries and enrich data without coding. Once I connect to Impala, I can browse or search for the data I'm interested in, and then drag that table into my workspace. If I want to supplement this data with geographical information, I can do a search for that, and once I've found a table that meets my needs, I can pull that into my workspace as well. By default, MicroStrategy will join on the common columns between two tables, but I can manually create joins with a simple drag and drop motion. I can also specify what kind of join I want to do, and even specify the operator that should be used. I can quickly pull in all the columns from a table or add columns individually, so I can build a query very quickly and easily without having to code anything at all. I can even do things to enrich my data. MicroStrategy provides several ways that you can transform data without needing to code things specifically for Hadoop or Impala. So I can enter an expression and use one of the out-of-the-box functions, and since I'm connected to Impala, MicroStrategy will translate these functions to be Impala specific. If I want to write my own custom expression, I can do that as well. In this case, I'm applying a simple URL parser to the myRefer data point, which will tell me where the traffic to my website was directed from. Once I'm done customizing my expression, I can just validate it, and my query will then be updated with this new thing. I can do several things. I can add metrics by adding simple functions. I can also build a filter that will affect the where clause. Since this is just a quick demo, I'll restrict the query to the first 250,000 requests. Once I've done all of this, I can preview the data and actually enrich it further. It'll only do a subselection of the query, so it won't take too long to do. For example, I can mark latitude as a latitude object within MicroStrategy, so when I pull it into a map, it knows to use this data point correctly in that context. I can also do the same thing with longitude, or any of the other geographic data points such as cities, states, and countries. MicroStrategy will categorize columns as attributes or metrics, and I can switch the classification if I want to or need to. I can supplement the MyDate data to create new attributes for year, day of week, hour, etc. And this allows me to add additional layers of dimensionality and analysis without having to pull in additional columns and apply functions. Some of the simple things that are often overlooked are just the ability to rename objects, and I can even change the data type. So for this refer data point, I can change it from a text to a URL string. I can go ahead and publish this data, or I can check the SQL query that MicroStrategy will generate based on this report. Once I verify that I like the SQL that is being generated, I can submit the query. Because of the way Impala is designed, queries run much faster and results are returned in a shorter amount of time. This way, users can get the great performance from Hadoop without having to write their own queries. The result set is published as an in-memory cube within MicroStrategy, and since it is in memory, everything that we do in Visual Insight will be quick and snappy. So the first thing I'll do is, since I brought in all that geographic information, is to build a map. Since I mapped my latitude and longitude objects, MicroStrategy will populate the map automatically with these data points. With this visualization, I can clearly see where most of my web traffic is coming from. The areas marked in red are areas where most of that traffic is based. So here I can see the northeast region of the United States and pockets of the west coast have the most density, along with parts of the UK. Now I'm going to add a second visualization, this time a horizontal bar chart, just to give myself a different view of the data to get a better understanding of what's going on. By default, MicroStrategy will populate it with attributes and metrics, in this case days of week, and if I want to switch that out with something like the myRefer data that we manipulated earlier, I can do that very simply by clicking on day of week and swapping those two things out. Now obviously here we have a lot of data points, and so I'm going to want to build a filter. And how do I do that? Well, it's very simple. All I need to do is bring that myReferrer attribute into the filter section, and it creates a filter for me. But I can also do something like just return the top 10 refers based on web traffic volume. If I want to move the visualizations around to better utilize the space, I can do that. And you'll notice that the top riser here is actually a self-referred. So I'm not interested in that. I can actually click on it and exclude it from the data set. The last thing I want to do in terms of adding visualizations is add one more. This will be a scatter grid. And with this, I want to take a look at day of week and time of day to see if there's any time pattern in this data. And if I don't like how the orientation is, I can simply move things around with my attributes and my metrics. I can swap out my metrics. I can even change the threshold in color. So right now it's all blue. I can change it to a different color palette. I can even customize colors. So if I have very specific needs, I can customize that into my dashboard. But now we essentially have a dashboard at this point, and I can rearrange and resize things to make better use of the space, or just to make the presentation a little bit nicer. And you notice that everything auto-adjusts, so I don't have to be bogged down with formatting. But the last thing I want to do now is to add some interactivity between these visualizations. So what I can do is I can click on the map and use this map as a selector to filter out the scatter grid. So here I can just go to the context menu and just set up a couple of parameters. Again, there's no coding involved. And by simply doing this, I have some great interactivity. So now with the lasso tool, I can select the European region, and you'll notice that the scatter grid will update on the right-hand side. And then if I select the east coast of the United States, you'll notice a different pattern emerges. You'll notice a shift in time of day where the heaviest traffic occurs. So I was able to do this all very quickly and very easily. I was able to connect to Impala, run a query without having to do very much coding at all, and then once I was in MicroStrategy, I was able to build a comprehensive dashboard with some interactivity, and this is something that is accessible to all users. So using MicroStrategy with Impala would be a huge benefit to any organization who has structured, unstructured, semi-structured data in Hadoop that they want to analyze.